Welcome back to the Shine Within podcast. Jennifer Main is a transformational guide, healer, and mentor with over 27 years of experience in transpersonal psychology, energy healing, and altered states. She specializes in helping leaders, healers, and visionaries unlock their intuition, embody their highest potential, and create a life of flow and alignment. With a background in psychology and extensive training in modalities such as theta healing, Reiki, and flow performance, Jennifer bridges science and spirituality to facilitate deep personal transformation. Her work empowers individuals to turn wounds into wisdom, establish healthy boundaries, and reconnect to their true essence. I love that, Jennifer. I feel like, yeah, we need to come back to ourselves. The conditioning out in this world, just we were programmed completely something else, and just coming back to us. I think that is so crucial now in this time, especially.
Yeah, 100%. I think we spend our childhoods and kind of younger years kind of taking on all these labels and identities and behaviors because we're trying to fit in, we're trying to get our needs met, we're trying to get looked after. And then at some point we kind of wake up from that and go, oh, no, 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 this isn't right. This isn't right. So our adult years are about kind of stripping away and getting back to the core and really just remembering who we are. So yeah, I totally agree with you.
I feel like we come here with amnesia and we're like, why are we here? I remember as a little girl, I'd ask, what's the purpose of my existence here right now on this playground at school? Like, what am I supposed to do? Just follow the rules and just do what everyone is telling me to do? Even my friends that I had, oh, I had to wear certain clothes a certain way, or, the teacher says, no, you have to learn it this way, even though there's different ways of learning those mathematic skills. And it was just off. I felt like our society runs backwards. So just tapping back into our inner wisdom is what truly helped me, especially in my early years of sobriety. And I know you've helped leaders, visionaries unlock their own intuition. Now, how can someone who feels disconnected from their inner voice start strengthening their intuition?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think there are different ways to go about it, but what I found to be the most, I don't know if useful is the right word, but maybe the most direct way is to let yourself get still and get quiet. And we've gotten really good, especially lately with social media. We've got Netflix, we've got all these things that are just quick dopamine hits. We've got all these ways to distract ourselves. And for a lot of us, especially if we're going through some stuff, getting still and getting quiet is something that we fight and that we resist unconsciously or subconsciously. So I think for a lot of us, it's taking the time to really just sit with the uncomfortable questions, to sit with the things that stretch us, that take us out of our comfort zone. And it's recognizing and remembering that our intuition is not the loud, shouty voice telling us that what we have to do. It's calmer, it's quieter. For some people, it's the answers are more visual. For some, they hear. For some, they feel. For some, they just know. So for each of us, I think it's really figuring out which senses we're more comfortable with, the ones that we can really, understand and kind of demystify and get into. And recognizing that, we often want like a bolt out of the blue, a bolt of lightning,
Yeah.
the angel coming forth and saying, this
Yeah.
is the way. And that, that rarely happens. But nevertheless, we have those answers within us. So I think creating practices where either you're meditating or you're walking in nature or you're doing something that nourishes and nurtures you, but again that you're with your own thoughts, you're with your own body, and you can allow yourself to kind of play with some of these questions, play with these ideas of what's the most aligned step for me, what's the thing that's really calling to me right now, and just letting those answers kind of surface and make themselves known is a great way to start.
I agree because I had to sit with myself and then it was ugly. That's why I think I hated meditation in the beginning. My mind was so noisy and just thinking about everything else besides staying still.
Yes.
And
And that
then
is so human, so human. So you're definitely not the only one.
like my goodness. So I started then practicing going out in nature. I remember in 2022, I was like, okay, because COVID was still there and people were not gathering as much. So even though I was going out, it wasn't as how I used to go out. And so I'm like, maybe this time I go ahead and just spend time with myself and date myself and take myself on a nice hike. And that's where, I got all my answers, believe it or not. I would just sit on a rock, big one, and just look down at the beautiful valley and just breathe and just whatever I was asking, universe, God, source, I was just saying, hey, please give me clarity in this situation that I'm going through right now. And sure enough, the next day or even that evening, I got the answers, or you want to call them downloads, or so that intuition was there, because it's part of you, because you're part of God and your source itself. And so I always say we're little G's, that inner wisdom is like, that's us, though. That is us.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think something that I talk a lot about is, there people are very skeptical about some of this, and that's fair enough.
Yeah.
We're kind of, if we're not growing up in families or cultures that really talk about this stuff or understand it, then we're taught to just rely on the mind, rely on what you can know. But we are all energy. We know this. This is scientific fact. So of course we can read energy. Of course we can perceive energy. Of course we can perceive things beyond what our physical senses can take in. And actually, our physical senses and understanding can only take in just a tiny amount. So we miss out on so much information. So I talk about it as saying, is like if you're watching a movie and you're only getting 10% of the picture or 10% of the sound or 10% of the action, it's not a fun movie to watch. You're confused, you hate it, you want to turn it off. And this
Yeah.
is what we're doing when we're only relying on our physical senses or what our minds can logically know. So yeah, recognizing that, well, if I could just start to open myself up to some other possibilities, if I could recognize that there's much more knowledge and wisdom around me than what I maybe aren't perceiving right now, and kind of get out of this fixed mindset of the answers have to come in this way. I expect it to be in this way. I've been told that this is the process and this is the way to do it, and say, well, maybe there's something else out there that I just don't know yet. If we can kind of soften into that, then as you're saying, when you sit on that rock, when you ask for that clarity and guidance, then you're a bit more open and willing to receive it and less likely to try to argue with it if it doesn't match the picture you have in your head.
Right. Yes. And then I was just sharing with you too that, yeah, I've always had that intuition, but I masked it with alcohol. And it wasn't until I became sober where then I was trying to connect. And then I got more answers. And I just expanded my thinking, really, is what it was. And that's why I was starting to heal within. And that's why my podcast is called Shine Within. Because once I started healing within, I wanted to share it to the world. And that's where I'm at now. But your work actually bridges transpersonal psychology, energy healing, and altered states. Can you just go ahead and explain these different modalities and how they all actually come together in healing, in a healing journey?
So, transpersonal psychology is the understanding that we're more than the mind and the body, we're more than the physical. So, the transpersonal includes the spiritual as well. And for me, our spiritual journey is really where it's at. It's what matters. And for me, and you can, again, like you said, kind of God, creator, source, whatever terminology you have for that is fine. I'm not fixed on anything like that, but it is a recognition that for me is that we are more than this one human lifetime. So I would call that a soul. So this idea that we are these souls that are eternal, that have a higher understanding and a clearer picture of why we're here. And I think that, throughout our life, everything that we do, everything we choose, everything experience is helping us to answer two questions. And those questions are, who am I really and why am I here? And
Hmm.
sometimes we experience things that show us, nope, that's not the path. That's not what you want to be doing. That's not working for you. Maybe try another way and get deeper and clearer on who you are at your core. So that it's really understanding that we're just in this journey and we're in this exploration, and we can embrace that and embody it and have fun with it, or we can fight it, which is what a lot of us do.
Yeah.
And, when I talk about altered states, for me, meditation can take you into an altered state, exercising can take you into an altered state. There's lots of different ways where we can shift what we are vibing in
Yeah.
so that we are in more of a state of receiving, more of a state of healing. So yeah, there's tons of different practices. I think it's up to each of us to just recognize what works best for us as individuals, because what works for me may not work for another person. So again, it's that exploration and seeing, if for you, if it's hot yoga class, or, climbing a mountain, or just spending time getting really quiet and still and connecting with your body, connecting with your emotions. All of those practices will help you into those kind of altered states, those deeper brain waves where you can align, where you can start to make the connections and connect the dots in with all of that too. And, the boundaries aspect is really, for me, boundaries are about the choices that you make every day. It's what you say yes and no to all the time. And we're habitually just choosing a lot of the same things over and over and over again. A lot of times, not for the best. It's
Right.
sometimes it doesn't work for us. So for me, it's really about making your choices conscious and really kind of these questions of, am I just doing this out of habit because I've always done it this way or because I was told? Or is there an alternative? Is there something that is more conscious that helps me to be a bit more awake and aware of the journey that I'm on, so that if I'm choosing every day to feed my body, am I going to feed my body things that are lighter, clearer, cleaner? I'm not saying you need to be perfect and pure and all of that. I'm an 80/20 girl. So, but I think it's kind of recognizing, if you want a life of alignment, if you want a life where you're feeling strong or powerful or more compassionate or more kind or more generous, then what are the choices you can make each day that kind of lead you in that way and help you along that path as well?
Yes, boundaries are so important. Oh my goodness. I feel like I get rid of all those gaslighters, narcissists, those ones that try to control you. And I don't know, it kind of filters them out. This is my past experience because I had to make those boundaries. I had to set those boundaries. And I feel like with boundaries too, whatever I'm saying no to something, I'm saying yes to something else that aligns to my soul and what feels right. So you want to make sure it feels right. And I always say this, well, I want to share this story. My mom used to be a people pleaser.
Mm,
And at age 70, she's gonna be 75 in June, she finally is starting to say no. And how I
good for
know
her.
is because she said no to me. And I'm her
Yeah.
child, so this is really good. And I was like, oh, mom, I'm very proud of you because I asked her to babysit my cat while we were in Hawaii. And she said, oh, no. No
Good
problem.
for
Let me
her.
go ahead and find a second solution. And we got, I went to the Rover app and now I have a wonderful babysitter. Whenever we travel, she comes to the house and watches the cat. But I was like, wow, good for my mom. She said no.
Yeah.
So
And it's so great, because when we learn to set those boundaries, obviously it creates a better quality of life because we're more in alignment and doing more of what we want to do. It also prevents us from developing things like resentment and anger and frustration, because that people pleasing thing is that I want to fit in, or I want to be accepted, I want to be liked or loved. But then it just creates all this weird energy and dynamics between people, which nobody wants. And so the people pleasing actually kind of backfires and creates the things you're trying to avoid. So absolutely, learning how to say no when it aligns is that's medicine. That's healing just in itself. So yeah, good
yeah.
for
So I
her.
gave her massive kudos. So you actually help people transmute past wounds into wisdom, and I love that. I love the, yeah, turning wounds into wisdom. What does that process look like, and how can someone go ahead and start shifting their perspective on pain and trauma?
Yeah. So the idea around this, and a lot of modalities and philosophies will talk about this notion of that we're here to learn, that and that anything we experience, even if it's negative, painful, creates suffering, there's a component where we can learn from it, we can grow from it. It's really showing us what we don't want. It's shouting real loud saying, this feels awful, this feels bad, it's
Yeah.
creating problems. It's time for you to move away from that. But actually, you can take it a step further. And I learned this from Ram Dass. If you've ever listened to any of his talks or books, he's wonderful in so many ways. But he kind of took it to a different level for me, where he said, he used to follow those teachings of it's lessons learning, which, that can feel a bit like school and feel a bit gross
Yeah.
and maybe a bit punishing.
You're
But he
right.
says that he then started to look at it as, instead of these are moments to learn, he said these are moments for awakening. And there's a whole different feel and a different energy to that, because these are the opportunities for you to kind of wake up and say, oh, no, 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 I want something better than this. I want something better for this than this for my family, for my friends, for the world around me, for the relationship I have with, with my money, with my possessions, with my home. Um, so if you can kind of awaken yourself and allow yourself to be a little bit disrupted and pay attention, then you can start to make the healthier choices and the things that do align. So the idea of turning wounds into wisdom is having these awakening experiences, recognizing what you could be choosing instead and allowing that to heal you. Because I think a lot of times people think, and it's great to go into childhood stuff, it's great to go into past stuff, there's a degree of that that's wonderful to do. But I think it's also recognizing that as you start to learn what isn't working for you and what's unhealthy, as you start to make the new choices just heal the past. So you don't have to keep going into the old stories and the
Right.
old dynamics. You can just start to make new choices and that will heal you. There's also something within this that I find really fascinating, that is about, in astrology, they call it the Chiron wound. So you could also look at it as these are the repeating patterns of wounding that happen throughout your life, and they tend to be a certain theme, a certain emotion, a certain dynamic, a certain type of people that you keep attracting, and things like that. Or it could be illnesses, it could be whatever's going on. Um, and so for some of these, they feel a bit stickier than others. They feel a bit harder to resolve. And it's those are the ones where you're like, I thought I dealt with this. I thought I understood this. I thought I'd stopped this pattern. And they're the ones that kind of maybe persist a bit. For each of us, I think that there are maybe a couple, maybe one, maybe a couple of these kind of persistent woundings, that these have the greatest gifts within them, the greatest lessons within them. And I think that with these woundings, these are the things that once we work through them, once we've kind of healed the wounding in it, it gives us really deep embodied wisdom so that when we show up to serve the world in whatever capacity that is, that could be as a parent, as a coach, as a healer, as a manager, as a friend, whatever role you're in, when you really understand and heal that, then you can show up in a new way because you can kind of say, I've been through this. I'm no longer triggered or activated by it. I'm not going to run away from it. I'm not scared of it anymore. Let me help you walk through this or move through this. So I know for myself, some of those deepest wounds have been around my intuition and my psychic senses. I'm a highly sensitive person. I'm neurodivergent, all of these things. And once I really learned to work through that and understand it, these are the people that I work with and the things that people come to me for most often. So being able to kind of understand it more deeply, resolve the issues within it, means I can show up in a place where I can be really clear and really light and help people work through that. So it becomes really interesting when we as individuals kind of look at what are those persistent wounds, the cycles that happen over and over and over again, and what can awaken within me so that I can show up more whole and healed and be a greater service to those around me. Mhm.
Yes, that's why I notice I serve versions of my past self. I feel, and because I can relate, I can connect. That's why I'm titled as a women's alcohol-free sobriety coach, is because
Yeah.
I've been there and I understand, and so I get it, and that's why we're there to help. Because yeah, we turn into our pain turns into our purpose,
Yes.
and we just, yeah, you were so right about that. Yeah, and Chiron, that's a Sagitt. I think of the Sagittarius. Is that a
There is a connection with that.
I
Yes,
don't know.
there
I'm not
absolutely
really good
is.
with astrology. I'm a Sagittarius, that's why. And then Chiron is like the half horse, half
Mhm.
human. I don't know. I may be wrong.
Yes, yes. The centaur, absolutely.
Centaur, that's what it is. Centaur. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Mhm.
Now, your work also explores consciousness and quantum mechanics. How does understanding these concepts actually help individuals step into their highest potential?
Well, first of all, that is absolutely a lifelong journey. So,
Right.
as humans actually getting to a point where we totally understand it, we may get there at some point. I think we're still working on it.
Yeah.
But that's my goal. That's one of my lifelong passions of study and things that I want to learn and understand. And the idea is that there's this idea of if you kind of subscribe to the idea that we have these kind of laws of existence that kind of govern our world and govern our universe. Hopefully, I'm not getting too esoteric, but
It's okay.
hopefully it all makes sense.
Yeah.
So there's kind of a rhyme and a reason to our world. And there are things we can play with within that. So we can have beliefs that it takes time to heal, or it takes a lot of hard work to get something done. It's got to be really difficult or painful, or there's got to be suffering in it. Or you can loosen that up and you can play with it and recognize, oh, maybe it doesn't take as long as I think it's got to take, or it's not going to be as taxing or difficult as I think that it's going to be. So I think if you can understand that, they're again beyond the physical, or I mean, and connected and within the physical is not devoid of this, but that there are energies, that there are understandings, that there's wisdom that we can tap into that is beyond what we can tangibly see, feel, touch, know. um, then it opens us up to greater expansion, to deeper healing, to more awareness of the workings of the world. And I think that for myself, the way I've benefited from that is that, again, if you're only going with a little bit of information we get on a physical level, things can feel confusing. They can feel frustrating. You can feel really trapped and controlled in this paradigm. But if you can start to expand that out and say, what else is there? What's beyond this? And again, this is where the intuition comes in, and any practices and study and things like that, then it kind of frees you. It frees you from being kind of trapped in that conditioning. And again, I think we all kind of come to these conclusions or have our own ways of learning about this. So yeah, I think anything that's helping you to expand your mind and expand your experiences beyond what you thought it had to be, is helping you to understand that consciousness and get beyond the physical, tangible world.
Yes, and I think the best way to do is just ask. Just ask, like, hey, help me expand my thinking.
100%. It can be that simple. Yeah, really.
Help me. So I was always doing that. I think in 2020 is when I had like my great awakening.
Mm.
And the 2020 makes sense, like clear vision. Like my eyes opened up more, and then I
Mm.
like learned
I
more
love that.
about this world and how icky it is and how I was just brainwashed. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is disgusting. And then I was getting scared, and I think I went through what's called the dark night of the soul,
Mm.
because I
Hmm.
was in a dark place because I felt like I couldn't share with anybody what I was experiencing because they weren't experiencing. And, they're not wrong at all. It's just they're not experiencing that
Yeah.
yet. And so I had a hard time just even conversing with my husband at the time. And he's like, yeah, right. He still tells me, yeah, right, Gina, whatever. Hmm. But now he's starting to get it. He's actually starting to use the word intuition. And he had never said that before. So I think times are changing. My mom is saying
100%.
no. My husband's saying intuition. Times are changing. Times are
They really
changing.
are. They really are. Thank goodness. And we can have
Yes.
more fun with it because now it's exactly what you're saying. There's more people to talk to, there's more understanding. People get it on some level. Sometimes we're using different language or different words, but people understand there are deeper meanings. There's other things to kind of consider. Some of the cynicism I think is starting to melt away. Yeah, yeah, that is evolving. Absolutely.
So we're in exciting times. And you know what? My soul chose this time. So I have
Yes.
to say, hey,
Amen.
okay, get you, soul. Okay, now I know why you're here. But I don't like to experience these emotions all the time, but I get it. Okay, I'm getting it. I'm getting it. So
Yeah. It's a profound time to be here. I think the people that chose this like really, really chose it, knowing it wasn't going to be the easiest life or the easiest time, but we're built for it. We chose
right.
it. We came here for it, so we can do it.
I was telling my husband, the bravest souls come here on earth, right?
Yes.
I said, we're all brave. It's a scary place. But
My
yeah.
favorite thing with clients and students is I've had a number of them. They're like, I'm done with Earth. I'm done being a human. This is the last time I'm coming here. I'm like, yeah, right. I'll see you next time.
Yes, see you another lifetime. It's so true. Yes, the last time, I don't even know if it was the last time because I had my Akashic records read to me and
Cool.
it all made sense. I'm like, oh, my soul. Okay. Yes, I was here in the 1700s. I was here even before. that in Colombia, and then in the 1700s was in Costa Rica as a shaman. And I'm like, okay, well, I do massage therapy, and people always say, oh, you have healing hands. I'm like, well, okay, I don't really think too much of it, but then it made sense once I had
Yeah.
that opened up. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, this
We
makes a
get to
lot of
carry
sense.
those gifts and those wisdom through lifetime to lifetime. So
Yeah,
we feel like we're starting all over again, but actually we're building and we're remembering so we can bring all that through. It's very cool.
well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Yay. Now, with the rise of plant medicine and holistic practices, how do you actually go ahead and see the future of healing and personal transformation
Mm.
evolving?
This is exciting. Again, it's a very weird and interesting time.
Yeah.
And I think, like with any big shift in paradigm or way of thinking in humanity, there's going to be some bumps along the way. There's going to be some forward and backwards and some opposition and some, just the old ways of thinking, trying to open up to newer ways. And obviously, with plant medicines and altered states, none of this is new. People have been using this for thousands and
Yeah.
thousands of years. So yeah, I think it's really interesting watching what's happening with like the legalities of things and how things are being kind of tried out. And it's I find it fascinating because we want the science to explain everything, yet we don't have the tools scientifically to measure everything. So of course it's not ever going to be able to explain everything that we're trying to measure or understand. But I think there's a great place for all of that in kind of our evolution and healing and consciousness. Again, I think it's probably going to take a little bit of time and trial and error. For me, it's really about finding practitioners and people who are able to hold space with, again, going back to really healthy boundaries, being really clear with all of that. So yeah, so there might be a messy middle, a liminal that we go through with that, but yeah, I think there's a great time and place for that. So it's really interesting to see what's unfolding right now.
Yes, because I want to have a farm one day. I told myself, Gina, you're going to have a farm, but not a big farm, just just like aquaponics. I want to go ahead and have some chickens for the eggs, bees for the honey. I want goats for their milk and cheese. I
Mhm.
want to live comfortably. I want coffee plants. I want mango plants. I want like my own, grow my own herbs. Like I want to, when I say herbs, like rosemary.
Yeah,
And I want all of I just want to live like that. I don't know. And it's going
yeah.
to happen. I just don't know when, but it will happen. I'm putting it out
And we
there.
know all of that is so medicinal and it's so good for us. And again, a lot of us kind of in current culture and things we've kind of lost track with a lot of that. But there's this great movement to get us back to the land, getting back to eating things that are whole, that are seasonal, that are natural, that are healthy for our bodies. So yeah, you're absolutely not the only one that's wanting to to shift and move that way. And I think our bodies are calling out for that. I think our souls, our spirits are calling out for that too, because anytime we move too far out of alignment, there's a big shift back. So a lot of times it feels like there's a pendulum swing with a lot of these
Mm.
things. And hopefully we find an alignment somewhere maybe in the middle, whatever works for each of us. But yeah, it can be really profound, even just kind of cleaning up the food that you're eating, how you can kind of, when people talk about like raising your vibration, things like that, like simple things like that can do it. You don't have to have these big crazy practices or massive detoxes over months and years. It is just cleaning up those simple things can make it easier for your nervous system to calm, for you to tune into your intuition. So yeah, I think it's a big part of that too. Mhm.
Yes, I don't even know the last time I had like McDonald's or Burger King or Taco Bell. I don't even remember. Like, and right now, like I eliminated all the preservative foods, the frozen chickens.
Yep.
Mr. or was it I don't know, but just a bunch of frozen food and I'm just like, hey, no more, no more. So I'm clean eating and I feel alive. I'm like,
Yeah,
hey, I'm more vibrant. I'm always been vibrant, but I'm more vibrant. I'm like, yes. This is
absolutely.
cool.
It makes such a difference.
It does. I feel so much better.
Mhm.
Yeah, clean eating is so beneficial for me. And yes, my husband's starting to do it too. He eliminated rice. Rice was a big big thing for him to eat. It's part of his culture. He's Indian, so he's used to South Indian, so he's used to eating rice with everything. And he's like, "Oh, no more rice. My stomach doesn't agree with it anymore." I said, "Good, you're listening to your body. You're listening to your
Absolutely.
intuition. You'll know. Your body will tell you,
Absolutely.
not for me anymore." Yeah. So, what's one daily practice listeners can go ahead and start to align more deeply with their soul purpose and embody their highest potential?
So I'm going to kind of give you a three-fer, but I'll tell you how it all
Yeah.
fits together.
Yeah.
So my big thing is breathe, move, meditate.
Mm.
So breathing, some people have these really elaborate breathwork practices that are really cool that they love. You can either you can also just do something simple like nasal breathing. In and out of your nose calms your nervous system, takes you into a really deep state. Um, your the movement can be a yoga class, it can be go to the gym and lift weights, it could be a walk in nature, it could be ride your bike, it could be dance around your house, whatever that
Yeah.
is for you. And then the meditate could be just simple sitting with your body, listening to your body. It could be a guided meditation, it could be something with music. It could be a walking meditation because as we walk, it moves us into a rhythm, into an altered state. Um, so I would say each day do a bit of the three of those. And you can actually kind of stack them because if you're doing like a yoga class that has a bit of breath work and meditation in it, you're kind of doing it all together anyway. Or again, if you're on a walk and you're listening to some music that takes you into a really deep state where you're really in tune with yourself, you're feeling really aligned and in flow, you can bring them all together. But I would say find things that you can do every day that gets you into that state, that gets you into those deeper states where you're more in tune with yourself and your body. And I would say shake it up a little bit too, because if you do the same thing every day, every couple months, you get bored with it. It doesn't work anymore. So, be creative with it. If it's ecstatic dancing one day and it's, just simple body scans the next, do what works for you. Um, and yeah, see what other people are doing, try things out for yourself, painting a picture for some people that can move them into a meditative state, so doing something creative can also be really beneficial for that. But our bodies want to move, our minds need some time to rest, and that breathing moves energy through us, it moves air through us, it nourishes our cells, and it can really remind us to be very connected with our bodies. So yeah, so find a combination that works for you and play with it and have fun with it. Hmm.
Yay. I love that. So yesterday I did both because it was combined. I did stack them. There was yoga and included breathing. It was an old video that my trainer had created for me a while ago. I think it was last year. And then I'm like, let me just do this video. It's not a video, it's just on my computer, on my Google Drive.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I did it and we breathed for like 10 minutes and I felt incredible. And the same thing goes for even my breath work that I do on my own. And it's like my meditation as well, because it's for about 25 minutes I'm doing breath work. Like it's like hypno breath work. It's actually guided for me. Daisy Mack does that one for me. So I have people who help me out here. And so
Perfect.
it's yeah, so yeah, I agree with you 100% that it changes your mood, it changes your physiology, it changes everything, and you just feel better. So I would definitely recommend that audience.
Yeah.
Okay, listen to Jennifer here. She knows what she's talking about.
And an added bonus for that is once you start to commit to doing that every day, you reprogram yourself. So you
Yes.
actually start to look forward to it and your body kind of goes, "Oh, this is what we do every day." And so it's easier to just say, "I'm going to do it. I'm going to commit to it. I'm going to follow through with it." And especially if you can do it in the morning first thing. And maybe you can't do that every day, but morning is a great time to do it because it really sets you up for the rest of the day. It just really puts you in a good state. But yeah, so we talk about, programming and conditioning all the time as being negative things, but program and condition yourself for the good stuff. So the
Right.
more you engage in it, the more your body and your energy goes, this is what we do, this is how we feel, and it gets better and better and better.
Yeah,
Mhm.
reprogramming, resetting, it's all good. It's
Yes.
all good. Jennifer, where can our listeners go ahead and connect with you, learn more about your work, and just dive deeper into intuition healing and also peak states?
Yeah, so my website is withjennifer.com. So I've got free resources there, some ebooks, meditations, videos, things like that. You can also find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. Those are all with Jennifer 44 is the kind of tagline for that. Yeah, yeah. So, and obviously get in touch if there's any questions, but there's lots there to engage with if you're just wanting to find out a little bit more and do things on your own pace.
Wonderful. Well, any last words or thoughts?
Oh, yeah, I would just say that if anything we've talked about kind of sparks your interest or you find yourself being curious about, lean into it. There's so many resources online. There's lots of different things you can kind of research and look up. And follow that intuition to
Yeah.
to learn more about it and just to try it out. We are there's a lot that you can do by reading and learning and studying, and those are all great and do that. But also, if we embody it, if we practice it, if we do it, we learn it, we understand it on a deeper level. So allow yourself to have some experiences. Don't just shut yourself in a room and read, but go out and do it. Actually implement the practices, have the experiences, go to the concerts, have the conversations with the people, go to the class, whatever that is, and really just let yourself try it out and get a feel for it.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being on my show today, Jennifer.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.